there on your shot, the American team. Those guys, you can see, I love getting on board with these sailors. You can see how much they're doing with their sails. Holding this boat head to wind is a real balance between the jib. You'll see the crew easing it and just pulling it on to get a little bit of flow over those foils. These boats sit a little bit nicer than the 49er and the 49er FX in the sense that you can sit that hull in and you've got a little bit of control over the boat. But look at some of the steering that goes on with the helmsman. They're really pumping that helm to hold the boat into position.
Well, without flow, of course, it's very hard to manoeuvre. So this will be race number 9, a resale of the abandoned race. We're coming up to 8 seconds to go. All the boats are at the windward end of the line. And as we count down, there's a port hander starting. This is race 9.
And we are away. Strong manoeuvre from the Norwegians. Are they going to get across? Yes, they will. A nice little bit of angle for those guys. It does take a lot of guts to get across that fleet. Will they get across the pack?
I don't know if they'll get across the pack, but if you do clear the pack, it's certainly something to tell your mates in the bar afterwards.
Their next contenders will be that New Zealand team that are just, you can see their bows on the edge of the screen. I think that they will be through. It's always hard with this camera angle, but it'll be a big duck if they have to start ducking the whole fleet, and there it is, bow down. They'll be looking for a gap, but there just is none. These boats are stacked up on that boat end side.
Yes, give way boat, port hand start, and if you can't really clear the fleet, you are then in the game of the big dipping competition as they dip all the way across. Great start by Outeridge. Plier from France second is Santiago Langer and Parenza in third, but it's early time with the data. But you've got to know the people that are on that board have got a good start.
And what we're seeing here is a lot of boats falling onto port tack, so that's really going to show that perhaps it's a little bit more than just that bias that's giving those boats the advantage. We've got at least 60% of the fleet now onto port tack, so on the opposite tack to the boats that are on the centre of your screen right now. Those guys are heading out to that right-hand side, and there is one boat that is absolutely launched, and it is Outeridge and Outeridge leading their pack out to that right-hand side.
I think they won the committee boat end and they were first attack. Now, Nathan Outeridge will just capitalise on this. They can pull their bow down, they can get in that foil assist mode. The wind now is just touching, trying to get up to 9 knots. It's actually at 8.5 knots. But it is the Outeridge siblings of Nathan and Hayley who have got first advantage off the line.
And about 3 or 4 boat lengths away from that next line of boats that you can see on your screen, with Santiago Langer and Carranza. Newberry and Lindenberg are in there as well as the Italians Tita and Banti, Italy 26. Yeah. It's a juggle. We talked about the risk at the pin end. There's also that risk at the boat end. Those guys have got to make sure there's space for them to fit all 2 of the hulls in before the boat, and then pulling off that first tack and being clear. It's a real skill, and he's done it particularly well today, showing a little bit of his experience there.
So it's Outeridge, Pizarro, Santiago Langer and Carranza. They were there. Titi and Banti.
And Gibson and Burnett, they didn't have the winning start off the boat end, but they are a few boat lengths to leeward, and they're flexing their speed right now as well. We know that those guys are fast when, given the space and opportunity. And so they've got their bow down. They're really trying to close the gap on the boats around them. But that you do get a little bit of advantage being that leeward boat. You can control your mode a little bit more. You can sail perhaps a little bit lower. We're talking about that foil assist, at least getting some of those hulls skimming and out of the water, and you've got your best chance.
Well, it just reduces the wetted surface, and once you can build the speed up and upwind, they very rarely the boats are really still not configured to foil upwind, but certainly they will get a bit of assistance from the foils to pop the boat up out of the water.
And so we're seeing quite a strong angle from those guys that are on starboard tack. So I think that's why they're leading out into that right-hand side so that they can get that lovely tack in and capitalise on that good angle. And we're just seeing Outeridge and Outeridge pop that tack in now as we are on board with Gibbs and Weiss. And you can see double trapping. It would be nice for these guys to stretch the legs after a few more light races that we've seen today. And a few of those guys out on the right-hand side have put that tack in and they're sending it over to the top mark. We're still just in the bottom third right now, so it's interesting to see how early that they're, those lead boats in the right-hand side are putting that tack in. You've got a good perspective of it there on your tracker. That, you know, they're just doing the right thing there. I think you're just reducing risk by checking in with the rest of the fleet, and then you've got that next best choice when they condense together.
Well, a team that are really dominating this one and is Outeridge, Nathan and Haley. Beautiful start, and now they're coming back on port and corralling that bunch around them back into the centre of the course. Great
shot of them right there on your screen, and that is oh no, that's the Greeks just to leeward of them.
I think the group that we're talking about far right this is the left-hand group that we're looking at, is the Greek team, and to windward of them there's, I think, one of the Australians. I can't quite pick out those numbers, but you can all see it on the water now. Over on the right, there's more pressure. The water's the colour is darker, and I get the impression that the boats in the middle there that we're looking at, their bows are actually pointing more to the right as well. So it will be pressure and shift as the sea breeze builds. We're seeing now it's touching on 9.5 knots. And I would expect by the end of this one, we might even be seeing 12 and 13 knots as the afternoon. But we pull back and you can see Outeridge, well bow forward, very controlling, centre of the track. Immediately behind them, we've got Tita and Banty, then Gimson and Barnett. Santiago Lang is stacked in there.
And one boat that has taken a little bit more of a bite of that right-hand side, their sail isn't actually, you can't see them quite on your screen, but it is Delapierre and Ordonez and Jones and Porebski. These guys are just a little ladder rung above them on the right. So they're bow back, but they've taken a bit more of a bite of that right-hand side. So it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out.
Well, if the wind is freshening and angling from the right, if they're stacked up to windward of the race leaders, that could be very nice as they get up towards the top mark. Bit of a drag race at the moment. It's not a lot of mid-course tacking going on, and it was the initial advantage. Beautiful start by Nathan Outeridge.
And these guys are going to be on starboard tack now for quite some time. And when these tacks if the course gets skewed, one tack might get, you're spending a lot more time on it.
I think it's long starboard, eh?
It becomes super crucial for these guys to have a clear lane and hold it. And that's when it turns into a little bit of that drag race for these guys to be able to hold that lane and keep as much speed as possible.
Good pressure, and it's building as we see. We can see the boats coming back now on port from the left-hand side. They are quite a long way behind the boats that tacked early and went over. So it's all about right-hand side. It's pressure and shift as we head up to the first mark.
Yeah, and you can see that dark patch right at the top of your screen. It's really showing us. It's great to see on the drone footage. You can see the actual pressure there. It's a game changer getting these drones up there. You get such a great view of the racing, and you can see there on your screen
the
Australian team of Outeridge and Outeridge just sending it.
And there's more. The closer you get to that headland over there, it just looks darker and darker. I think the right-hand group will just get richer and richer, and very quickly they are up in the zone and getting set up for the top mark rounding. Yeah,
Argentina number 1, Langer and Carranza, these guys are putting a little bit of pressure. There you can see Nathan's kind of responding to that pressure there. There's flying out on that right-hand side. They've taken a little bit of a dig out there, and that's definitely applied the pressure. You can see Nathan there reducing the risk. They're taking a dig up. It'll be interesting to see how these two boats meet when they come together, because that right-hand side, they are flying in that pressure.
Certainly enjoying a good little zone, good little push forward at the moment. Down to leeward, we've got the other Australian boat. I assume that'll be Waterhouse.
Yeah.
So the Australians have been locked together like on a bungee, but at the moment it is the outer ridge combination.
And there's that cross, Argentina just getting across. So that right-hand side is playing dividends for those guys that took the dig out. And now the pressure is on Argentina. Are they going to take another step up? My guess is that they're a little bit short of lay. So they may have 2 more tacks left in them to get themselves up to that angle of the top mark.
So that should actually swing the pendulum back in favour of the Australian combination. Although Langer was ahead, he's got 2 tacks to do if he's not on ley line. Will he roll the dice and push it really hard on ley line? It's a high risk manoeuvre to come in on port and tack on the marker and get tack complete. So we could be in for a bit of an interesting top mark rounding.
You can see them having a bit of a conversation. Such a good, yeah, there it is. There's that tack. So these guys will be doing, it's a really short step up to that ley line, and the pressure is on for these guys. They're on port tack now. They have to keep clear of those starboard hand boats as we come into our top mark.
He's picked it beautifully. Langer's done the business here. He was ahead at that cross with Outeridge, and he's held on and he's extended his lead. So he's taken a bit of a risk, but also had the benefit and taken a gain. So at Mark 1, it is Santiago Langer and Carranza in the lead.
And a big gust the Australians got. They leaned right over. I think it's the Italians just to windward of them managed that gust just a little bit better. They put the heat on, but it will be Australia 4, 5, 6 just in behind in second place. A great upwind for those guys, really solidifying that great start.
Jibe set by the race leader Langer at their mark, and Outeridge carries on port.
Yeah, so we've got 3 boats now that have made that jibe. Oh, 4, 5.
But that's how strong. So what this is telling us is when we look down and we're now looking to the left, there's just more pressure, more angle.
It's getting windy quite quickly. These guys have to be so switched on to transition from that super light stuff to what is fire. You can see how hard the crew's working. Get that kite up, get it strapped in. You've got all your jobs then, and that's even before you get out on trapeze. It's quite a juggle. These guys are so athletic.
On that reach the offset. On Nathan and Haley, at least as far as we've seen, they were the only ones to jump up onto the foils. And it just showed you how hard they're pushing. We saw when Santiago Langer was going up when that head-on shot, his bow was down into the water. And when we had that side-on shot of Nathan and Haley, they were just getting into skimming mode. You saw his leeward bow lifting up. He was flatter than everyone else. And he was just pushing the foiling going upwind. And that's something he sets up even before the start. So he's pushing really hard. They were the only ones on the offset to get up on the foils. They just want to get going.
So you can see in your shot there, the Australians, Outeridge and Outeridge, are 1 ladder rung down. They're the boat that's furthest on the right of your screen there. They did the jibe late. It's going to be interesting to see how favoured this right-hand side is, that these boats are screaming down.
But I get the impression the boats that jibed earlier are in more pressure and angle. And we can see there a big wheelie by the third, but that might be Tita and Banty, maybe?
Hard to see.
I can't quite see. No, it's not. It might have been them. I think that might have been the Italian flag. But it's all a bit of a one-way track down as we head down towards the bottom. Where's Outer? Oh, he looks quite strong down to leeward. It'll come down to the next manoeuvre, the jibe, and of course the boats coming back from the left will have starboard advantage.
It's the opposite downwind. When you're sailing in foiling mode, if you heel any more than just a couple degrees, you can really get the boat out of control, and it's a long way back from that. You really have to keep the boat really flat, and it's a really kind of narrow angle of how to deal with it downwind. You're not supposed to heel and lift the weather hull like you do upwind. It needs to be flat.
Well, the old foils, especially if they're an L foil on these boats, they do not like angle of attack being skewed. Otherwise, it all ends in tears.
Beautiful jibe there by Tita and Banty, and then Carranza and Langer there following suit with that jibe. Just that little ladder rung down and forwards, but Tita and Banty are really putting the pressure on the Argentinians now onto this downwind.
Yeah, Tita and Banty, I think, did a slightly better job there of that manoeuvre. They're not bow forward enough yet to be affecting the flow over Santiago Langer. Next one to come into play will be where Outeridge, as they're ahead of Outeridge, so it's very close between the US and the Australians, and John Gimson is in that mix.
There is pressure being applied from
tight
all directions.
She's tight at the front. The wind's up to 10 knots now, so it is slowly increasing. We're on leg 2, race 9 of the finals.
It's great to see a good battle, of about 7 boats all fighting it out for that first place. Often, the lead boat gets to leg out a little bit and relax, but there is no relaxing for any of these boats out here. They are fighting tooth and nail for every metre. The main contenders for this first place is definitely Outeridge and Outeridge, Tita and Banty and Langer and Carranza coming into this bottom gate. But Tita and Banty, they are slick downwind.
They're fast. They now, from the animation, will be in a position to affect the trailing boat.
Now watch really carefully the cruise. The breeze and the sea state must be really steady, because earlier in the day you saw the cruise go way far forward and then run way far back. The crews are in a very steady position. They're not moving very much, just a couple feet either way, but they're staying really steady right now. So that means the breeze must be steady, and the windier it is, the more stable they can sail.
Yeah, and the seaway's relatively flat, so there's not the need to do those big 4.5 adjustments. That's Tita and Banty jibe. They must be...
Let's see what they're doing downwind.
Here we go. That's the Argentinians to windward, but behind. So that's a lead change. As we come into Mark 2, it'll be Tita and Banty ahead of Langer and Carranza. And Nathan Outeridge and Hayley Outeridge are going to be right in the mix, as are the Americans and the Brits.
Yeah, Newberry and Lineberg, they've really put themselves into a great position on this downwind. And also Gimson and Burnett, they've really inserted themselves into this pack that's racing for that first place. It looks like Tita and Banty will get into that bottom mark from that angle there. And so it's going to be interesting to see which side these guys pick at this bottom gate, and if there'll be any splits as well. If these guys, I think they're going to be favouring that right-hand side.
I'm sure they'll take the right gate if they're on ley line and head out again over towards that far side. Boats are already around the marker, the leaders.
Okay, so we've just had a bit of a time jump here, so we've all caught up. I think we were a little bit delayed on our online screen. So we're going upwind with these guys now.
I'm curious to see where the other Italian boat is, Vittorio. And they were right, Tita and Banty were right behind them in the previous race, and now they're launched in the lead, or at least
the race leader went really quiet there. Have they got an issue? I think they've got an issue. I think they might have an issue on board the race leader. We can see it's probably weed. I wouldn't mind betting they've picked up.
Yeah, they're going quite slow.
They're going really slow. Was it seaweed or foul on the foils, or have they just fallen into a light spot? But for sure, they were leading this one, and they're not now.
It's been a big hit. You could see them both sitting up, talking to each other. It looks like a bit of a lull as well. Perhaps they've got a lot of dirty air from these spinnakers coming down, but they just don't look quite comfortable. Yeah, they're not really legging out.
They definitely stopped, and they were working on something, looking down in the boat, pulling some lines. If they were really concerned about weed, you would have seen them almost stop or throw an attack and back down, because that's the technique.
It almost looked like something else had come unzipped for them.
Right.
So that is a big moment in this one. So Tita and Banty led at the bottom mark gate, but looks like they've had a mechanical issue on the second upwind, so we're on leg 3. And that's throwing the advantage right back to the Australian combination of Nathan Outeridge.
Yeah, it's unfortunate we didn't get to see them go around that bottom mark, but it does look like they've had a little bit of a step up on the rest of the fleet, and they've definitely got right back into position. The Outeridge and Outeridge, they're super strong on the upwinds. They have to defend on the downwinds, but they're really putting themselves in a prime position on the upwinds, quite tactical, always in the correct side of the pressure and aggressive off the start line.
Yeah, the Americans, Sarah Newberry and David Liebenberg, they've really had a good day. They're really starting to progress quite nicely. Even a year ago, they would have moments where they'd have a top 5 race, and then they go back into the 20s. But, they're having a really great day today, so maybe this is their time to shine.
Well, they're up there in second, and they certainly engineered that bottom mark gate approach and exit very well. And they have also benefited, as have boats 1 to 4 on the mistake or the error or the mechanical issue that the Italian of Tita and Banti had. I'm sure that'll be a talking point. Someone will ask the question.
Yeah, they did. They slowed right down to 7 or 6 knots when everyone was doing 11 down to leeward. I did a bit of rewinding, and that it just goes to show you've got to be on speed all the time in this game because these guys are flying.
So we're on leg 3, race 9, finals here in Geelong for the Nacra 17s. This was the race leader earlier on, but unfortunately they have had an issue, and that played for the benefit of Nathan and Hayley Outeridge.
And this second beat is brought to you by McGlide, our boat wraps. Never anti-foul your boat again. Sign up for more information at 49er.org/wrap to get in touch with those guys for any of your anti-fouling, non-anti-fouling needs.
The one thing I've seen through this fleet as we're on this long port tack is I've spoken with at least 3 sports psychologists for individual teams in the Nacra 17 class, and I'm sure that doesn't mean like the Nacra 17 drives you nuts, but it's a really nice little trend that we may be seeing. I know a lot of national teams have sports psychologists online, on call, but these are teams that are speaking with their sports psychologist every day for the same amount of time that they're speaking with their coaches.
Well, I think it brings in, we were talking earlier just to this whole new dynamic in the sport of male-female, mixed crews, and you got to treat it, it's a different project. Right. And so the use of sports psychs and, a different style maybe of coaching to making sure that you're getting the most out of the combinations and how you build that combination. It's different to different genders are different, and it'll be interesting in time to see how the sport evolves around that. No, it looks a positive thing for our sport. It's great.
Yes, and I talked to Perrin and Atwood of the American team, and they were saying, they have a sports psychologist that's a little spread thin. It's almost like they'd like to test drive a couple sports psychologists to find the one that works, and it really makes sense. It's the same thing as coaching.
So we're coming down to the business end of this upwind. These guys are in the top half right now, and it does look like Outeridge and Outeridge Australia 46 have managed to consolidate their lead there. There was a little bit of pressure by boats a few ladder rungs further to the right, but they managed to just get across Newberry and Liebberg, and also Langer and Carranza, Argentina number 1. So it is still super close out there, but as it stands, Outeridge and Outeridge still just have that advantage.
Yeah, they do. And
7 metres in it, though.
I think Langer and Carranza have got good upward speed. Whether they're as fast as the likes of, I think, Tita and Newberry downwind, I'm not sure if Santiago Langer's got his downwind completely dialed in. Upwind, they certainly look quick. Nathan Outeridge has got, coming from a skiff background, he's going to be fast on the downwind legs, and it seems to be that the Australians' crews are all pretty quick on the downwind legs.
Yeah, our Aussie crews, they're not enormous, they're not huge girls, but they're super strong. I know how hard both Hayley and Lisa work in the gym to keep it up, because you can be small but powerful on these boats. So much of it comes down to timing, and these girls are really, going to show that. And it was the same with, we spoke to Tanya Frank earlier in the day in the boat park, and she and Thomas won the bronze medal, and she's not an enormous girl, I think she was one of the smaller crews in contention, and it does go to show that if you've got your timing down and your skipper's kind to you, that you can be any shape and size and sail it competitively in these classes.
This is starting to play out like a replay of the first upwind where Langer came across on a starboard short of ley line, and we were talking about can he do 2 tacks and get round the leading boat. Same picture here. Santiago Langer is certainly ahead of the advantage line, but then he's got the roadblock really of Outeridge to windward. Now Outeridge also does have the Outeridge team they're not on ley line, so they have to pick the time when they attack. So the top mark approach for the first and second is going to be pretty interesting. Is that going to open up an opportunity for the third take?
And they're lifting, whether they're pinching or they're lifting, their angle is getting better and better as they're coming into this top mark.
Yeah,
you can see Langer, he's putting the pressure on. He's really pinching. Yeah.
Langer's quick upwind.
They're coming closer and closer to that ley line as we speak.
Yeah, and we heard about the boats that can get up onto the foils. If you get up on the foils going upwind and you do it well, you actually wind up pointing higher than the other boats.
Sure, more flow, and that means less leeway, and you know.
It's just an investment.
Exactly.
It's about
money in the gang. Here they are.
boat
So
loads.
Langer has sailed round the bow of Nathan Outridge. So that is a big moment. I mean, you'd be psychologically pretty gutted for someone to come out from being so far to leeward, and it is the current gold medalist from Rio who has had a blinder of a third leg.
Unfortunately for Newberry and Lineberg, those guys were the meat in the sandwich there. They just got squeezed out from both angles. You can see the pressure there. You can see these boats fully lifting up. I'm pretty sure that's a little weed clearer. They're going right up on their ear to make sure any weed, if they're lucky, drops off. But we're coming into our top mark. This mark rounding's brought to you by Ford Whip. Go faster on the water, and these guys are going faster.
They're pushing to try and get up.
Yeah.
They're pushing to, they're in high mode, looking to get up round the marker. But what a leg for Santiago Langer, and as he's starting to flex his incredibly strong, muscular performance in this leg. First, it'll be Argentina, followed by Australia at Mark 3.
It looks like Santiago put a little bit in the bank holding Nathan and Haley up just to give himself a little bit more room. When you do that, then you get the person just a little bit further behind you. It gives you a little bit more breathing room once you get around the mark.
Little battle of the crews here. Who can get that kite up and away as cleanly as possible?
Jibe set.
Yeah.
Below manoeuvre. Nathan Outridge
Yeah,
does bear away set.
Again, right up onto the foils really quickly, but he's following him.
I think Outridge will be, if he can get sorted, has the potential to be faster on the downwind leg.
He's put himself into a good position there.
Whoa, he's lost control. He ventilated there on the foils. So what happens to the foils is it's like a speedboat. The propeller, if you get air in there, the thing won't fly correctly. And so that was a little error there by Nathan Outridge.
Yeah,
Right
you jinxed
on the
him a
edge.
little bit.
Yeah, often happens.
Okay, we got the French after the Americans. Now they're starting to come back into their form. The French are really quick.
That's Delapierre and Ordonez there, France 56. Closely followed by New Zealand 96, Wilkinson and Dawson.
Wow,
they're having a great day.
They're having a huge day. A in the regatta, but B for selection.
Absolutely.
New crew, new combination for New Zealand.
In the fleet, the French are considered to be the most consistent in speed across the board. Even the other sailors will tell you that.
And a tight mark rounding here. You've got St. Holt and Lubeck in just with the advantage there over McKay and Saunders applying a little bit of pressure. And Gimson and Burnett are in there as well. It is packed at this end of the fleet. These guys are really fighting for every position. And we've said that time and time again. 34 boat fleet, you're just fighting to keep as tidy result as you can when it goes a little bit wrong. Great shot of this on board with Weiss hoisting that spinnaker. She'll get straight onto the sheet once she's sure it's up. It's really important that they get all the halyard tension. It can be a cranky old downwind if you don't get that halyard all the way up. You can see that attention to detail there with that last pull. Make sure it's up and then straight onto the sheet.
And getting into that harness hook, the harness hook, when you pull it down, is almost below the rail of the weather hull. So there's a big leap of faith when these crews jump into these hooks. They just fall right back out and push out really quick.
So we're looking at the group there of the New Zealanders of Wilkinson and Erica Dawson, Harlhoft and Stulphammer, and then Mackay and Saunders, 7th.
Yeah, and how that played out at the top mark. Santiago Langer, you can see that lead that he's managed to pull there from outerage and outerage there as they lead down to that bottom mark. They've got a great angle, these guys, at the moment. It is a really long jibe here. It will only be one short little jibe, so you can see why there was that urgency for these guys to get straight onto that new jibe, because it will only be a short little dig back into the finish. It's a really skewed course right now.
It is long, and that's reflected in what the wind is doing. It's going right, and its pressure's in the right, hence why on the downwind, predominantly a jibe set. Can't help but think that Outridge just missed a little trick at that top mark with slightly delayed jibe set, and then he ventilated. And I think he's got good pace, Outridge, on the downwind leg, but Santiago Langer and Carranza have maintained their lead, but it's Outeridge has jibed out of there early. Now that creates the opportunity. Well, it creates a situation where Langer actually has to wait to get clear air before he can come across to the finish. So Outeridge is going to fight all the way to the finish here.
Applying a bit of pressure there.
Well, early jibe. He created a situation where the leading boat actually has to make a decision. He's been quite aggressive.
If there's any more breeze ahead for Outeridge, then that's a perfect opportunity. Just a little bit more pressure inserts a lot more boat speed in when you're up on the foils like this. So there's a chance that just a little bit more pressure can get you down a couple more boat lengths down to Langa's line.
Yep.
And just like Langa came up to them on the weather leg, they have a chance to roll them and drive down over the top.
Just a quick check-in. We saw Tita and Banty having a bit of trouble at that bottom mark. It has been quite tough for them. They're in 13th place now, a little bit further back in the track. So it'll be interesting to check in to see with those guys what went wrong. We'll have to chase them down in the boat park, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we want to look on the port side of that boat, and whatever they were looking down at, it looked like towards the centerboard trunk.
These guys look like they're jibing in. They'll be really close to the finish line right now. There it is. Great race by Santiago Langa and Carranza. Those guys did a stellar job and just held their nerve downwind. You know, it's getting windier. There's a bit more pressure, but you can see the Aussies there really close. Outeridge, a great result for them in second place. Congratulations to those guys. What a start from those. It was so impressive. And then in third place, Newbury and Limeberg. Those guys had a wonderful race as well. Just being consistent and not making any errors. And it will be Delapierre and Ordonez, France 56 in fourth place. A bit of a battle of the Kiwis going on here. McKay and Saunders have caught right up to Wilkinson and Dawson. We're going to see them coming into your screen here. It should be a nice little close Kiwi finish for these two boats. But it does look like it will be Wilkinson and Dawson just getting that fifth place in. Another good notch against the rest of their Kiwi counterparts.
Yeah, they've had a strong, very strong World Championship, and they're quite a long way ahead of the next boat, which will be Olivia Mackay and Jason Saunders. Big gap. So that leading group really extended.
Yeah.
So here's the next boat coming in. It's New Zealand, and then followed by John Gibson and Anna Barnett from GBR. They haven't had a great day.
No.
In terms of they went into today leading, I don't think they will be now.
No, and we're seeing there it will be St Holt and Lubeck in 8th place, and another New Zealand team, Jones and Porebski, in 9th place there. Although that looks like an Australian. That would be Waterhouse and Darman and crossing the line now, and Kohlhoff and Stuhlhemmer, the German 77 team there. And we're about to see on the screen, it will be Tita and Banty. Oh, no, perhaps not. That will be one of the New Zealand teams.
Yeah, I think
there.
that might be.
Here they are,
Jones
Tita and Banty getting in across the finish. They had a really tough second upwind.
I think something went wrong. You know, to go from first to deep, I think you might find in the wash-up of this one that they had an issue, whether it was weed or mechanical, something with the foils. Another good result for the Japanese there.
They'll be thrilled with their day. Fun fact, we just heard from Olivia Price out in the water. She tried to get us an interview with Outeridge, but apparently a Nacra going home is faster than our camera boat at the moment. So they've absolutely sent it in. It's been a long day for these guys with those delays. So unfortunately, we won't get to hear from them, but hopefully we can catch them in the boat park as we watch the rest of these guys come across the line. Peter, we're going to see a real shake-up of these results today. You know, we've seen Outeridge. They've put together a really solid day. You know, they haven't won every race, but they've managed to keep their lesser results solid. But we've seen a real shake-up, especially with the Spanish team, Tara Pacello and Florian Trittel. Those guys have had a little bit of a struggle today. We just saw them cross the finish line. And, you know, Vittorio Bassaro and Mael Franscari. It'll be interesting to see how all these results shake up. We should be able to get, once the rest of the fleet crosses the finish line, a bit of an update to see.
I think there'll be a new leader for a start, and I think it will be the Outeridge combination. I think Micah Wilkinson and Erica Dawson have had a good keeper day. I'd expect them to. They started in 7th. I think they're going to be in the 4th or 5th. And some people have slipped the other way. And this class really is still in the early phases of people dominate. There's no one really dominating and sort of saying, I own this class, like you see maybe in the 49ers with Burling and Took. It comes down to a new class, new combinations. The boats are still evolving.
So we'll take a little moment here to talk about our Australian Bushfire Appeal. This is a great way for us, the sailors and the event, to give back to those who have been devastated by the Australian bushfires over the past few months. We have a fundraiser and a raffle available. If you go to 49er.org/donate or any of our 49er FX or Nacra Facebook pages, you can please do donate, and also you go into the running to win some pretty cool prizes, which we just drew before. So we've had today's winners, but we will be drawing again tomorrow and for our final day as well. So give to a good cause and we might give back to you as we're watching the rest of the teams come across the finish line here.
So this will be the last race for the Nacra 17s, but stay with us because we've got 3 or 4 races coming up for the 49er class once the course area is clear, and that will be fascinating. There'll be some good racing, and the conditions wise it's actually getting better and better as the afternoon wears on. And
I think we'll see the pressure building a little bit, and that will, the 49er boys, they will absolutely love that. And you can see them in the bottom of the screen. You know, they're not allowed on the course area until all the racing is complete, but they'll be getting up onto that course and lining up, finding their legs, and then we'll be off for their first race of the day. And as you mentioned, we'll be getting 3 or 4 races away from those guys.